Recording live from the Hoban Law Group here in Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Eric Singular. We're sitting alongside President and founder of the Hoban Law Group, Bob Hoban. Today we are talking about harmonizing regulations for cannabis products in Brazil, and we are joined by the CEO and founder of Dr. Cannabis Viviane Sedola. Viviane, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Eric. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to talk to your audience.
Well, and first and foremost, and before we jump into this exciting conversation about all the things happening with cannabis in Brazil, tell us how you're doing. How are you holding up? How is the country of Brazil doing during this time?
Well, during this time, even though we're during pandemic and COVID, things have actually moved in the cannabis space in Brazil. So on March, we had a new regulation going active, and we had the very first cannabis-based product actually authorized to be sold in drugstores here. So pandemic didn't hold the country back in that sense. And we're moving forward, and we have a new project of law that was that had a new report released yesterday. So things are moving quite fast.
Well, we're so happy to hear that. And we know that here in the last couple of weeks, the beginning of August, you hosted the Digital Medical Cannabis Congress. And if you would, tell us a little bit about that, and let's use that as a way to talk about the work you do with Dr. Cannabis as far as connecting patients in Brazil to doctors who would prescribe them cannabis.
Sure. So we were very happy to host the first Digital Medical Cannabis Congress in Brazil. We had more than 15,000 participants. We were expecting 10,000. So it was an amazing outcome. And they had access to more than 20 hours of lectures from highly qualified speakers, such as Professor Rafael Michulan, who needs no introduction, and Professor Lumir Hanus, who was from his team and who actually discovered anandamide and, well, the endocannabinoid system. So it was totally online and for free. So a very, very great moment for us, considering we've been since 2018 running Dr. Cannabis and knowing that information is the best medicine. So back in 2018, we had something around 1,000 patients accessing cannabis legally in Brazil for treatment. And considering we are a huge country and a huge population, and we have something around 600,000 patients with hard control epilepsy, how come people were not accessing? So pretty much they didn't know that they could access legal medical cannabis, and also doctors didn't know how to prescribe it. So I realized that, yes, considering my digital background and also my public relations experience, I understood that we had a communications problem more than a science problem. We do have scientific evidence enough, but people don't access it. So through Dr. Cannabis, we created not only a space and not only a lot of content, science-backed content, but a safe space where doctors and patients and brands can coexist and interact and prescribe and, well, buy and have access to legal medical cannabis in Brazil.
So in Brazil, as you look at that law, and you've done a really good job of illustrating the same point that I hear over and over again, not just across Latin America, but around the world, and that is that people just don't fundamentally understand this stuff. It really is a communication and education problem when you think about the fact that we know that there's so much science that supports the use of cannabis for a variety of therapeutic uses. But people that don't know that, sometimes they look at you like you've got three heads. They don't know, they don't believe it. It sounds like it's a crazy concept. So I agree with you and want to echo that communication and education piece. But as you transition in Brazil sort of away from this patient-based approach, and incidentally, I've worked with Anvisa for a number of years working through the import process for some of our clients here in the United States, but it was always direct, and visa approval, and then direct to the patient. Now that's changing a little bit. That's on the basis of the law provides rights for individuals. It didn't necessarily create a commercial or regulatory framework. And we're seeing the same thing happen with some of the new laws in Brazil. And I was involved with the Medterra CBD case where they were allowed to grow and cultivate industrial hemp. But there are limitations on that, and it doesn't create a commercial enterprise. So that's a mouthful, but the simple thing I'd like to talk about and sort of get your take on is that transition away from, in the patient context, individual rights, patient right focus to a regulated or commercial model run through the nationalized healthcare system.
Well, that's the expectation. What we see in Brazil is that the whole regulation, well, mainly in the world, right? Back in 2015, when the first regulation came out from Anvisa, what we had were families with kids with heart diseases and, well, hard to control epilepsy, pushing for some kind of regulation. And they found this way to put it through. But as we all know, cannabis can bring relief to many other diseases and, well, chronic illnesses. So the pressure kept going and going, and Visa couldn't actually deal anymore with the compassionate regulation they had. So they felt like obligated to create something else. They recently, on December 2019, they created this new regulation, actually a sanitary authorization for cannabis products. So it creates the category of cannabis-based products, which are not medicine, which must be dispensed by pharmacies as controlled products, and they must initiate clinical trials in 3 years and conclude them in 5 years. So, and also to apply for this sanitary authorization, companies must present GMP certificates issued by some member of the Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme, which is PICS. Well, some countries are part of it, like FDA. Mexico's COFEPRIS is also part of it, but not all countries, like Colombia, which is a neighbor, and, well, could benefit both when it comes to harmonizing regulation internationally. We have this kind of problem. And also, companies must present stability studies for Zone 4B, which is Brazil, and, well, and again, have local average pharma production and distribution licenses. So this has all come from public pressure. So far, we do not have a law that regulates and that looks at cannabis as a whole. So what Anvisa does, just like FDA, they must keep patients safe. So it's not for Anvisa to regulate cultivation, for example. And right now we do have a project of law that's been going on since 2015. And as I said, was just presented to the Chamber of Deputies yesterday. They presented a new report of how this law should look. And it also focused, so far I haven't really read it many times, just a quick look at it, but it is not focused on the market itself, on the economic impact that cannabis could bring to Brazil. And again, when it comes to cannabis, we should not only look for cultivation and not only look for the patients and not only look for, well, the impact it can bring on public health, but we should look at cannabis as a whole, and also considering our peer countries and countries that have, regulations in place, and how we will relate with them. So this has not been done yet in Brazil as it should. It is evolving again. Each and every step is a good step. I'm very optimistic about it, but it is not quite as good as it could be. We have many examples. We have Canada that actually regulated in a few steps with clear rules and when they were to be applied. And in Brazil, we still are not there yet. But yes, we have many countries from which we can learn. So hopefully this project of law will be the kickstart for more, because it still has to go through, just like in the US, has to go through approval on the Chamber of Deputies and then Senate and then the President of the Republic. So it is a long way. It will definitely change. We will advocate for it as we have, and many other interests are involved. So we'll see. Let's see what comes out again.
Well, you talk about Canada, and those regulations are quite comprehensive, but it also causes the cost of production in that market and from that market to increase substantially. So sometimes allowing the industry to get its feet underneath of it without a crystal clear roadmap creates the most economic opportunity and, frankly, the most opportunity for success, because it doesn't require such a high cost of infrastructure build out and compliance, which is the present change. And as you talked about, that change came from public pressure. Speaking of public pressure, you've been involved in public relations in terms of your background. What is it that drew you to the cannabis space from what you've done prior to Dr. Cannabis?
Well, I do not have a personal story, as many people, would expect. I've been in the digital space for more than 10 years. I was in Groupon when it first started in Brazil, stayed there for almost 4 years, and then I co-founded the one that is today the largest crowdfunding platform in Brazil. And I am a person of start, so back and on the beginning of my career, when I was a trainee, I realized that when I wasn't learning something new, I got really bored and I wanted to move on. And I still feel that way. When I left Kikante, which is the crowdfunding platform, I was looking for, a new challenge, not quite sure what it would be. But I was actually sure that I wanted it to be on impact and for profit. I do believe that we can find a midway there to, solve the world's issues and also make money through it. That would be like the perfect balance. And when I realized, again, that in cannabis, we had a communications problem and no one was occupying this space, I realized I was ready for it. Pretty much I saw that my background set me up for it. And I was looking into it. I realized I could help solve this problem. And fast forward 3 years, I became an authority in the Brazilian cannabis market. Participated as a guest speaker at public hearings on medical cannabis in the Federal Senate, on the Chamber of Deputies, on the Legislative Assembly in São Paulo. I was a speaker in Israel and Panama. I guess we cross-test each other, Bob, on Cannatex around the world and also in many parts of Brazil. And also in the last year, I was in Los Angeles for the Female 50 event of High Times magazine. I was awarded one of the 50 most influential women in the cannabis market in the world, being the only Latin American one. So it's been quite a journey, and I'm sure that I won't be bored in this market, not in the next 10 years at least. So yes, I set me up for it. I'm really excited with what is to come.
So no, that's a fascinating thing, and congratulations on the impact you've had to date. But let's talk a little bit about that impact. What can you share with our listeners about the impact that Dr. Cannabis has had with individuals, with patients in that marketplace?
Yes, so we are a community of more than 30,000 patients today and more than 3,000 doctors. So these doctors are not all prescribing. They come to us asking us, how can I do this? I have this patient and I don't even know where to start from. So we create a lot of content. We guide them. We show them how to go through bureaucracy. We actually do that part for them, and we do it for free. We do not charge patients. We do, as a business model, we do commission over the products we sell, but they must have the same price the patients would pay if they bought them directly from suppliers, from the brands themselves. So what we offer is a free service, a free sheltering for patients, free guidance for doctors, so we can, well, help shape and build this market. And what we end up with is a lot of data that, yes, again, will help future brands, will help market evolve, and will help also clinical evidence to be more understandable when, well, again, information is the best medicine. So that's what we are up for. And the Congress we just hosted was quite a milestone. We've been planning that for a long while. And again, it came out even better than we expected. So I'm trying to design what we're going to do on 2021 to make it even bigger and, well, with more impact. Who knows? Time will tell.
Well, it's such a wonderful thing that you're doing, Viviane, and I just want to highlight that sentiment one more time, that information is the best medicine, because we hear from so many guests that we have on the Hoban Minute podcast, just the value of education and why it's so important to spread the knowledge of this plant. And we thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspective. Brazil has a very special place in me and Bob's heart, because we've been watching this since December when the regulation first passed, and we said, now the die is shaken, now the die must fall, because we do believe that Brazil will set the table for the future of cannabis policy and trade in Latin America. And we can't wait to have you on again to follow up with additional updates and to keep tracking the progress of all of it in Brazil. So thank you so much, Viviane.
Thank you. It will be my pleasure, well, to come again and to update us all and get to learn more from you as well.
Well, thank you again, and we will connect very soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Hoban Minute. Do you have any ideas for episode topics or guests? We would like to hear from you. Reach out to us at media@hoban.law and stay tuned for more on the Hoban Minute.